On the wedding morning in Lusaka, Natalie woke up feeling both excited and nervous. Her family home was alive with noise, music playing from the kitchen, aunties shouting instructions, cousins running around with ribbons and flowers, and the sweet smell of freshly cooked food filling every room. It was the perfect kind of chaos, the kind that makes a bride smile because it means her big day has finally arrived. Natalie sat in her room getting her makeup started, trying to calm her racing heart. She kept reminding herself, this is my moment, nothing can spoil this. But just then, the door opened and her older sister, Tawana, walked in. The whole atmosphere shifted instantly. Tawana didn't smile. She didn't congratulate her. She didn't hug her. She just stood there with a cold expression, looking Natalie up and down as if judging every detail. Natalie felt a chill run through her, even in the warm morning air. Tawana had always been complicated, sometimes loving, sometimes competitive, sometimes unpredictable. But today she looked different, like she was carrying something sharp behind her eyes. Natalie tried to push the feeling aside, forcing herself to focus on the joy of the ceremony ahead. But deep down, she knew something was off. Even the bridesmaids noticed the tension, glancing between the sisters quietly. Tawana's silence felt louder than all the music in the house. And although Natalie smiled for everyone, she could feel a storm forming in the room, one that had nothing to do with clouds or rain. She didn't know it yet, but this morning tension was only the beginning. The moment the bridesmaids began helping Natalie into her wedding dress, the room felt warm, busy, and joyful. Women laughed, jewelry clinked, and one of the aunties kept shouting, "Careful, that fabric is expensive." Everyone was excited, everyone except Tawana. She stood near the door with her arms crossed, watching her younger sister like she was inspecting an enemy. Natalie tried to ignore it, focusing on the soft feel of the lace, the shimmer of her veil, and the compliments pouring in. But Tawana's presence was like a shadow in a room full of light. When one bridesmaid said, "Natalie, you look like a queen today," Tawana smirked and muttered just loud enough for everyone to hear. "She always rushes things, even this marriage. I hope she knows what she's doing." The room went quiet for a second. The bridesmaids exchanged uncomfortable looks. Natalie's heart dropped, but she forced a smile and said nothing. She didn't want to fight on her wedding day. But Tawana wasn't done. As the makeup artist adjusted Natalie's eyeliner, Tawana walked closer, pretending to admire the dress. She said. "You chose this style? Bold. Some brides choose something more flattering." Another subtle jab. Another sting. Natalie's hands tightened in her lap. This wasn't new. Their rivalry had been alive since childhood. Who got better grades, who got new clothes first, who their mother praised more. As they grew older, the competition shifted to careers, relationships, and finally, the invisible war of who was more worthy. Their mother often treated Natalie like she was delicate and needed protection, while Tawana was expected to be strong. But instead of strength, Tawana grew resentment, quiet, bitter, and deep. Now, on this important day, all that old jealousy sat in Tawana's eyes like a boiling pot. One bridesmaid tried to break the tension. "Tawana, come help us fix the veil." But Tawana only shrugged. "She doesn't need my help. She is everyone else." Natalie looked at her sister through the mirror. Tawana's eyes didn't look hurt. They looked calculating, sharp, almost angry. It felt like she wasn't just upset, she was preparing something. A move. A moment. Something she believed would remind everyone that she mattered too. When the hairstylist stepped out for more pins, Natalie gently said, "Tawana, can we not do this today? Please." Her voice cracked a little, but Tawana leaned down and whispered, "Oh, I'm not doing anything. I'm just watching. That's what I always do, right?" Her words weren't loud, but they hit like a slap. The bridesmaids continued working, pretending not to hear, but everyone felt the tension rising like heat in the room. Natalie tried to focus on her breathing, on the celebration outside, on the man waiting for her at the altar. But deep in her chest, a quiet fear grew. Tawana's glare wasn't just jealousy, it was a warning. She was planning something, and whatever it was coming soon. Natalie could feel it, and for the first time that day, her smile slipped. The house was suddenly quiet as the final moments before the ceremony arrived. The bridesmaids had stepped outside to help organize the entrance line. Aunties were calling from the hallway, telling everyone to hurry. Drums from the garden beat in a steady rhythm, signaling the start of the traditional procession. It was almost time. Natalie stood alone in the room for a moment, taking a deep breath. Her dress was perfect, her makeup flawless. Her heart, however, was racing like she had just run a marathon. She tried to steady herself. This was her wedding day, the day she had prayed for, dreamed of, and planned for months. Then the door opened quietly. Tawana stepped inside. Her face looked calm, too calm. She closed the door behind her, and the click of the latch sounded unnaturally loud in the silent room. Natalie swallowed hard. She wasn't ready for another argument. Not now. Tawana walked over slowly, her heels tapping on the floor. She didn't smile. She didn't congratulate. She simply stared at her sister, eyes cold and unreadable. Natalie forced a soft voice. Tawana, please can we not? Before she could finish, Tawana stepped closer, so close Natalie could feel her breath on her. And then, in a quiet whisper that sliced through the air like a knife, she said, You'll regret this wedding. That one sentence hit Natalie like a lightning bolt. Her whole body froze. Her skin turned cold. Her fingers gripped her bouquet until her knuckles turned white. What do you mean? Natalie managed to whisper back, but Tawana was already stepping away with a small, chilling smirk. She didn't explain. She didn't repeat herself. She just walked toward the door as if she hadn't dropped a bomb in the room. Natalie's mind spiraled instantly. Is it a threat? A warning? Is she jealous? Does she know something? She tried to move, but it felt like her feet were stuck to the floor. Her heartbeat grew so loud it drowned out everything. The music, the voices outside, even her own breathing. She tried to call out, Tawana, wait, but her voice came out shaky. Tawana glanced back with empty eyes and said, You'll understand soon, before sliding out of the room and disappearing into the hallway. Natalie stood there completely stunned. She felt like the walls were closing in. Her chest tightened. Her thoughts exploded in every direction. Why would Tawana say something like that? What did she know? What was she planning? The drums outside grew louder as the wedding coordinator knocked on the door. Bride, it's time. Everyone is waiting. Guests cheered. Music rose. Footsteps shuffled into place. But Natalie couldn't hear any of it clearly. Her heartbeat was roaring in her ears. She whispered to herself, What is she talking about? What is she going to do? Instead of excitement, fear crawled up her spine. Her sister's whisper wasn't just words. It felt like a promise, a dangerous one. The sun was warm, the sky was clear, and Lilley Gardens looked like a dream. White chairs lined the aisle, flowers hung from wooden arches, and the soft beat of traditional drums mixed beautifully with modern wedding music. It was the kind of setting brides imagine when they close their eyes and picture the perfect moment. Natalie stepped onto the aisle, trying to focus on the beauty around her. Guests stood and turned, smiling, cheering softly, admiring her dress. Children threw petals in front of her. Cameras flashed. On the outside, everything was magical. But inside her chest, the echo of Tawana's whisper still lingered like poison. You'll regret this wedding. She tried to shake it off and kept walking, reminding herself of the man waiting for her, Chimuka Bonda. A humble, calm, respected engineer who treated her with kindness and patience. The kind of man everyone said was rare to find. His smile always made her feel safe. And there he was now, standing at the altar in a perfectly tailored suit, eyes soft and full of love. Seeing him gave her a little strength. She breathed slowly and told herself, This is my moment. Nothing will ruin this. But halfway down the aisle, something shifted. The energy among the guests changed, quickly, sharply, almost like a cold wind cutting through the warm air. A murmur started. One person looked at a phone, then another, then another. Soon, small groups of people were whispering behind their hands. Some guests stopped smiling altogether. A few stared at Natalie with wide eyes, full of sympathy, almost like they felt sorry for her. One woman gasped softly and covered her mouth. A man shook his head slowly. Natalie felt every pair of eyes burning into her dress, her face, her steps. Her heart hammered. Her palms went sweaty around the bouquet. She tried to keep walking, but her legs felt heavier with each step. She looked at her aunt, who quickly looked away. She looked at her cousin, who whispered something urgently to the person next to her. Someone else held up a phone to show another guest a message. Natalie's stomach twisted. What's happening? Her eyes darted around, searching for Tawana. And when she found her sister standing on the far left, Tawana wasn't looking shocked like everyone else. She was watching Natalie with a small, satisfied smile. A smile that confirmed Natalie's worst fear. Something had begun. Something planned. Something cruel. But she didn't know what it was. Chimuka, still at the altar, noticed her hesitation and gently raised his hand toward her, encouraging her to continue. His face held confusion but also worry, like he could see the panic growing inside her. Natalie forced her legs to move again. She walked faster, desperate to get to him, to ask him what was going on, to cling to the safety of his presence. But just as she reached the front row, an elderly woman grabbed her daughter's phone and whispered loudly enough for several people to hear. Is this true? During the wedding? Natalie's blood ran cold. She had no idea what this meant, but whatever it was, it had just turned her perfect ceremony into chaos. And she wasn't even married yet. Just as Natalie reached the altar, the reason for the whispers finally exploded into the open. One by one, guests lifted their phone. Screens glowed across the garden, hundreds of tiny lights shining in the bright afternoon sun. People were scrolling, reading, gasping. Some covered their mouths. Others looked at Natalie with deep pity, as if her whole world had just fallen apart. Then Natalie heard it. A woman in the second row said softly, "Check your phone. It's about the groom." Her heart dropped. A cold wave rushed through her body. She turned slightly and saw her bridesmaids reading something too, their faces shifting from confusion to shock to anger. And standing far back, leaning against a pillar like she was watching a show, was Tawana. She wasn't shocked. She wasn't confused. She wasn't sad. She was satisfied. It hit Nallely instantly. This was the storm her sister had been brewing. A bridesmaid finally whispered to Nallely, voice shaking, "Your sister sent a message to everyone, saying Chimuka has a secret girlfriend and proof." Nallely felt dizzy. "Proof," she whispered. The bridesmaid nodded. Voice notes, screenshots, everything. Gasps grew louder. Elders frowned deeply, whispering among themselves. Some even shook their heads at Chimuka, as if condemning him without hearing a word from him. It was exactly the chaos Tawana wanted. People began turning in their seats, ready for drama, ready to see a wedding crash and burn. But Chimuka, he didn't move. He stepped toward Nallely gently, reached for her trembling hand, and held it firmly. His grip wasn't shaky. It was steady, strong, full of love that didn't waver even for a moment. "Nallely," he said softly, only loud enough for her to hear. "I don't know what's going around, but I didn't do anything. I swear on my life and my family." His voice was calm, even though the world around them was shaking. Nallely looked into his eyes. There was no fear, no guilt, no lie. Just pain that she even had to hear such accusations on their wedding day. She opened her mouth to respond, but an elder interrupted the moment with a loud sigh. "This is embarrassing. Why today of all days?" Another one muttered. "What kind of man comes to a wedding with a secret lover?" Guests' whispers turned sharper. Phones kept lighting up, some replaying the so-called voice notes, others zooming in on suspicious screenshots. Tawana's message had spread like fire in dry grass. Then, slowly, everyone's attention shifted to Tawana herself. She didn't hide. She didn't pretend. She just crossed her arms and gave a small, satisfied tilt of her head, like she had finally proven a point she'd been waiting years to prove. Nallely felt tears sting her eyes. "My own sister did this, on my wedding day." But before she could collapse from the shock, Chimuka gently lifted her chin and whispered, "Look at me. Not them. I'm here. I'm not letting go of your hand." And he didn't. Even with the entire garden buzzing with rumors, even with the elders ready to stop the ceremony, even with Tawana watching proudly like the villain of her own story, Chimuka stood tall beside his bride, unshaken, unmoved, and absolutely refusing to let her face this humiliation alone. For a moment, the whole garden stood in chaos. Whispers, accusations, phones flashing, and Nallely trying her best not to break down. Tawana looked like she had won. She stood at the back with her arms folded, chin slightly lifted, enjoying every second of the drama she had created. But she forgot one small thing. Not everyone in the Bonda family was easy to fool. Out of the crowd, Chimuka's cousin Mapalo, a quiet, serious-looking guy who rarely spoke at family events, stepped forward. He held his tablet tightly and walked straight toward the altar with a focused expression. "Excuse me," he called out, raising his voice over the noise. "Before anyone judges Chimuka or stops this wedding, you all need to hear the truth." The murmurs faded. People leaned forward. Even the elders turned their attention to him. Mapalo stood beside the couple and tapped on his tablet. "I'm an audio engineer. I work with sound technology every day. And the moment I heard those voice notes, something felt wrong." Tawana's face twitched. Nallely's heart thumped harder. Mapalo continued, "The voice in those clips sounds like Chimuka, yes, but the emotional tone, the sentence flow, the background noise, they don't match. So I ran the clips through my analysis software." He took a deep breath and turned the screen toward the crowd. "And here is what I found. Those recordings were pieced together from old voicemails Chimuka sent years ago. Copy, paste, stitch. A fake confession created from real words." Gasps rippled through the guests. Someone whispered, "What? She faked it." Another voice said, "Impossible. Who would do that?" Mapalo wasn't finished. "And these screenshots of conversations? Also fake, created using an editing app. I checked the metadata. None of them came from Chimuka's phone." All eyes swung toward Tawana. She tried to look calm, but her fingers tightened around her clutch. Her jaw clenched. A small flicker of panic flashed in her eyes. Mapalo turned slightly, pointing toward her. "And the message that spread this lie? The one that reached all of you? It came from her number." A heavy silence fell. Then someone gasped loudly. Then another. Then everyone started whispering at once. Phones turned away from Chimuka and Nallely and toward Tawana. Dozens of screens aimed at her like bright little spotlight. An elder shook his head. "You sent this?" Another muttered. "On your sister's wedding day?" People began shifting away from her, as if betrayal itself had a smell. Tawana swallowed hard, her confident posture slowly collapsing. I didn't, you don't understand," she stammered, but it was too late. The truth was already out. Mapalo looked at the crowd and added, "Someone tried to destroy this wedding with lies. But technology doesn't lie. And neither does my cousin." Nalali felt tears rising, but this time they were tears of relief. She turned to Chimuka, whose steady hand still held hers like a promise. Guests who moments ago pitted her, now pitted the sister who tried to ruin her life. The betrayal had been exposed. The lie had exploded, and Tawana, who expected the ceremony to collapse around Nalali, suddenly found herself standing in the wreckage of her own plan. For a long moment, the garden was filled with nothing but shocked whispers and the bright glow of phones pointed at Tawana. But then another voice rose, slow, heavy, and full of a pain that had clearly lived inside him for years. Nalali turned and saw her father, Mr. Mwansa, standing up from the front row. He wasn't angry. He wasn't shouting. He looked tired, heartbroken, like something inside him had finally snapped open. "Everyone," he said, raising a hand, "before you judge my daughter Nalali or Chimuka, or even Mapalo's findings, there is something I must say." The entire garden fell silent. Even the birds seemed to stop. Tawana stiffened instantly. Her eyes widened, like she already knew what was coming. Mr. Mwansa took a deep breath. "What you all witnessed today is not new. This behavior, this jealousy, this destruction, it started many years ago." He looked directly at Tawana, his firstborn, the daughter he had once carried on his shoulders as a child. His voice cracked slightly. "You tried to destroy my marriage once, and I kept quiet to protect you." The crowd gasped loudly. Someone whispered, "What? She did this before." Even the drummers lowered their sticks. Nalali froze. She knew her parents had gone through problems years back, but she never imagined her sister had anything to do with it. Mr. Mwansa continued, his voice deep with sadness. "When Nalali's mother and I separated for almost a year, people thought it was work stress, misunderstandings, the usual. But the truth is, someone sent messages, voice notes, and fake evidence to her, claiming I had another woman." He paused. Tears filled his eyes, but he blinked them back. "Your mother left the house because she believed those lies." Everyone listened, stunned. "And when we finally reconciled," he said, "we traced everything back to you, Tawana. You were only in your early 20s, but the jealousy was already poisoning you." Tawana shook her head wildly. "Dad, stop. Don't do this here." But her father didn't stop. "I forgave you then. Your mother forgave you. We said you were young, emotional, confused. We thought you would change with time." His voice hardened slightly. "But today you tried to destroy your sister's life, the same way you tried to destroy ours." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Disappointment spread like a wave. Aunties exchanged shameful glances. Cousins shook their heads. Elders whispered in Setswana and Bemba, murmuring things like, "This is too much," and "How can a sister do such things?" Someone said, not too quietly, "This is wickedness." Another added, "On a wedding day? Why?" Tawana's face crumbled. She looked trapped, cornered by her own history. Her chest rose and fell quickly, and she stared at the ground as if wishing it would swallow her. Nalali felt her heart break, not from anger, but from the realization of how long her sister had been carrying this darkness. Mr. Mwansa lifted his chin and spoke louder, addressing the whole garden. "My daughter Nalali did nothing wrong. Chimuka did nothing wrong. The person who brought shame today is my own child." The disappointment in his voice was heavier than any shouting could ever be. "And I will not let this wedding be destroyed," he added firmly. "Not again. Not because of jealousy." Guests nodded. The tension eased a little. People sat straighter, as if justice had finally stepped into the ceremony. Phones lowered. The angry whispers softened. But the damage to Tawana's image was clear. Many turned their faces away from her, unable to look at her without feeling shocked by her choices. She had wanted attention. She had wanted control. But all she received was disappointment. Public, heavy, unforgettable disappointment. And it was only the beginning of her downfall. The silence in Lalei Gardens felt heavy, almost suffocating. Everyone watched Tawana, waiting for her response, an explanation, a denial, anything. But she just stood there, her chest rising and falling as if she couldn't breathe. The confidence she carried earlier had completely shattered. Her hands trembled. Her lips quivered. For the first time that day, she didn't look like the proud older sister trying to stay in control. She looked like a woman whose world had just collapsed in front of hundreds of people. One aunt whispered loudly, "Just apologize, child." Another said, "What drove you to do this?" Their voices only made her crumble faster. Suddenly, Tawana let out a sharp, broken sob. The kind that comes from deep inside a person, pain that has been held in for years. "I'm tired," she cried, her voice shaking. "I'm so tired of pretending everything is fine." People shifted in their seats, surprised. Even Nalali felt her heart clench. Tawana wiped her face roughly. "You all think I'm the strong one, the older one, the one who can handle everything. But I'm not. I'm not strong at all." Tears streamed down her cheeks, ruining her makeup. She pointed weakly at Nalali. "She gets everything. Everything. Love, friends, attention. Even when she walks into a room, people notice her. Her voice cracked. Nobody sees me. Nobody cares what I'm going through. Her words hit everyone like a shockwave. I've been struggling for years, she continued, voice breaking. You think I'm jealous because I'm evil? No. I'm jealous because I feel invisible. I feel forgotten. Natalie felt her stomach twist. For the first time, she saw not a villain, but a wounded sister. Tawana's voice dropped to a whisper. When Mom and Dad loved you openly. When everyone praised you. When you got engaged before me. When you found happiness. She swallowed hard. It hurt. It hurt more than you'll ever understand. She shook her head miserably. I didn't want to destroy your life, Natalie. I just wanted someone, anyone, to finally notice me. People began whispering again, but the tone had changed. Less anger. More sadness. Even the elders, who had been furious moments earlier, softened their expressions, realizing this wasn't just cruelty. It was years of pain crashing into the open. But Natalie didn't move. She stood frozen, torn between heartbreak and betrayal. Her own sister had tried to ruin the most important day of her life. Yet the trembling woman in front of her didn't look like a monster. She looked like someone drowning. Their father wiped a tear from his eye, but didn't step forward. He knew this was something the sisters needed to confront on their own. Tawana finally sank onto a chair, covering her face. I know you'll never forgive me, she said between sobs, but I couldn't hold it inside anymore. I hate myself for what I did. I really do. Natalie blinked back tears. Part of her wanted to run and hug her sister. Another part wanted to scream. Another part wanted to walk away forever. Forgiveness was a long road. A very long road. And right now, Natalie wasn't sure she could take even one step. But she understood something clearly. Her sister wasn't heartless. She was hurting. Deeply. And pain, when ignored for too long, can turn people into versions of themselves they don't even recognize. But understanding didn't erase the damage. The guests watched quietly as the two sisters stood in the middle of a broken moment, one collapsing under her secrets, the other trying to decide whether to feel pity or protect her own heart. The road between them had cracked, and only time would reveal whether it could ever be repaired. Natalie wiped her eyes, took a deep breath, and looked around at the room full of people who had just witnessed her sister's destruction. The air was still heavy, thick with whispers and leftover tension, but she refused to let the moment swallow her happiness. She gently squeezed Chimuka's hand and whispered, "No jealous heart will ruin my joy today." Those simple words shifted everything. It was like a soft wind moved through the hall, pushing away the confusion and bringing back hope. The pastor, who had paused the ceremony with wide eyes and a stunned expression, slowly nodded as if he'd just remembered why everyone was there in the first place. Then Natalie stepped forward, her voice steady but warm, and said, "We continue." The guests, still seated stiffly, seemed unsure for a second. Then someone in the back clapped. Another followed, and suddenly applause burst out like fireworks. The relief in the room was so strong you could almost feel it in your chest. The DJ, who had frozen earlier with his hand hovering over the mixer, quickly wiped his face and restarted the music. Soft drums and warm melodies filled the hall, chasing away the tension Tawana had created. It felt like everyone was celebrating not just a wedding but a victory, love winning over bitterness, truth beating lies. The bridesmaids rearranged Natalie's dress, fluffing the train like nothing had happened. Cousins rushed around fixing decorations that had been bumped during the chaos. Elders stood up again, shaking their heads but smiling now, relieved that the darkness had passed. Natalie's mother hugged her tightly, whispering, "You are stronger than you know, my child." But in the middle of the renewed joy, everyone noticed something else happening quietly at the back. Tawana, her makeup smudged and her shoulders shaking, was being gently led out by two aunties. She didn't fight or argue anymore. She just walked with her head down, tears rolling silently. For the first time, she wasn't the center of attention, not because she failed, but because no one wanted the drama anymore. Natalie watched her leave with a complicated ache in her heart. Despite everything, despite the betrayal, the lies, the public humiliation, she still felt the pain of seeing her own sister broken. But she also knew something important. Loving someone didn't mean allowing them to destroy you. So she turned away, lifted her chin, and focused on the man she loved. Chimuka wrapped his arm around her waist, grounding her, reminding her why they were here. The ceremony began again, this time with more emotion than before. When they exchanged vows, guests leaned in, touched, amazed by their calm after such chaos. When they said "I do," the crowd erupted, claps, whistles, ululations echoing off the wall. It felt like a blessing, like the universe itself was applauding them for choosing peace. And when Natalie and Chimuka walked back down the aisle together, smiling through everything they had survived, everyone in the room felt it. This wedding wasn't just saved, it became unforgettable. The reception hall glowed with soft golden lights, laughter, and music. Natalie stood next to Chimuka, her husband now, and felt a calm she had never known before. The chaos of the morning, the whispers, the lies, the heartbreak, felt far away, like a storm that had passed and left only clarity behind. She smiled as they shared their first dance, holding each other close, feeling every heartbeat in sync. Guests cheered, clapped, and danced around them. Friends hugged her tightly, whispering congratulations, and even some of the elders nodded in quiet approval. Everything was perfect, not because nothing had happened, but because love had triumphed over envy, strength over spite. Nallely felt stronger than ever, not just as a bride, but as a woman who had refused to let someone else's bitterness steal her joy. Meanwhile, far from the lights and laughter, Tawana sat alone in her small living room. The messages, the fake voice notes, the excitement she had felt when sending them, all of it now weighed on her like a heavy chain. She replayed every move, every moment of her sabotage, and realized she had achieved nothing but shame. The victory she had imagined vanished, leaving only regret and emptiness. Back at the reception, Nallely raised a glass of champagne, smiling at Chimuka. She felt the warmth of the room, the love of everyone around her, and the certainty that she had chosen the right path. She thought of her sister, of the anger and jealousy that had tried to shadow this day, and whispered to herself, "My sister said I'd regret my wedding, but fate decided she would regret her hatred instead." The music swelled. Guests laughed and danced. Nallely leaned into Chimuka, feeling safe, loved, and free. The past, the lies, the betrayal, they were all behind her now. Today was hers, fully and beautifully hers. And for the first time that day, she let herself truly breathe, knowing that nothing, not even her sister's envy, could touch the joy she had fought so hard to protect.